Morning, everybody, and welcome to my first MLB The Show 19 Flashback Wishlist. Alright, so there is a bit of a difference between the Legends and the Flashbacks. The Legends are players who formerly played and are now retired players, and the Flashbacks are guys who are currently playing on a team today, alright? But yeah, I just wanted to make that. I'm not sure if you guys knew the difference between the two, but yeah, there is a bit of a difference. But yeah, so the Flashback wish list is going to be no different than the Legends, alright? So there are going to be absolutely no restrictions. There will also be 2 pitchers and 2 hitters, and with the 2 pitchers I will throw in 1 starter and 1 relief pitcher. This is going to just highlight a great part of a current player's career, alright? So this is going to be like, most of the time I'm probably going to be talking about their peak year, or like if they had an amazing postseason, or if they had a huge breakout year, or something along those lines. I'm also going to be throwing around potential program ideas once again with these guys. And then also, if you guys have any suggestions for any flashbacks, make sure you guys leave them down in the comments below. And before I begin, I just wanted to let you guys know that I am not feeling that great at the time of me recording this. I'm hoping this does go up on Friday, but yeah, I am sick at the time of me recording this, so yeah, I'm not going to be, showing as much energy as I normally do. So the first guy that I want to talk about today is a man who had an amazing 2017 postseason. Alright, this guy solidified himself as a postseason legend in 2017, the year that the Houston Astros won their World Series ring, and that is going to be none other than Astros center fielder George Springer. Alright, this guy, oh man, this guy had quite the 2017 postseason, alright? So his slash line that season would come out to be a 292, 386, and 611, which would indeed cap out to become, let me see if I can find it, that would come out to be a 997 OPS, alright? So it wasn't, so he was just under 1,000 OPS for that entire postseason, which is crazy, alright? He also hit 6 home runs in that postseason, and 5 of those came in the World Series, which is ridiculous because he tied the World Series record with 5 home runs in that series. I believe he tied Reggie Jackson and I believe Chase Utley, if I am not mistaken. Yeah, absolutely tremendous performance. A lot of power from George Springer in that offseason, or in that postseason, helped them really secure that World Series title. He also had 8 extra base hits and 29 total bases, I believe. He set records for both of those as well, for extra base hits and total bases, I believe, in just the World Series. He also had a home run in his final 4 games of the World Series, which I believe also broke yet another record. So in the 2017 postseason run for the Astros, George Springer was breaking records left and right. All right, and the last point that I made here is he basically became a postseason legend, as in the 2018 season he would follow up with not as good of a performance for the time that the Astros were in the playoffs, but he still put up some fabulous numbers in October for those Astros. Not to mention the fact that he was also a World Series champion that year with the Houston Astros, as they got their first World Series ring in franchise history. But he also ended up winning the World Series MVP that year, and deservingly so, after looking at all of the ridiculous numbers that he ended up putting up. And if I'm SDS, I'm giving this card a healthy 95 overall, so I'm basically copy-pasting the card from MLB The Show 17 last year. For those of you who don't know, George Springer was indeed the 2017 postseason final reward, like how we got Steve Pearce this year. Last year it was George Springer. But yeah, overall, this guy's speed would be pretty good. I think his fielding and arm would be pretty decent. But most importantly, that power and contact, his hitting stats would probably be off the charts, which could potentially make him like a 96 overall. But I think 95 overall would be a great middle ground for this card. sticking with that 2017 season, we're going to move to the regular season and talk about probably, in my opinion, the most underrated reliever in 2017. All right, he's a lefty. We definitely love our lefties. This is going to be our relief pitcher for the video, and this is going to be none other than Pirates closing pitcher Felipe Vasquez. All right, you guys are probably seeing on the card, isn't his name Felipe Rivero? Well, in 2018, he actually ended up changing his name to Felipe Vasquez in honor, I believe, of his late sister. But I think that's the story. But yeah, so that's beside the point. All right, 2017 Felipe Vasquez. This guy flew under the radar. All right. Because in 2017 you had guys like the Ken Giles of the world. You had like so many great closers out there. Being overshadowed by Kenley Jansen. There were just so many guys who did so well in 2017, and Felipe Vasquez was one of them who didn't even receive a notable accolade, as you guys can see on the graphic that I show here. But in that 2017 campaign, in 75 1/3 innings, he had a 1.67 ERA and ERA plus of a 2.56. And for those of you guys who have not seen the Legend wish list before this, I recommend you guys go watch it after you're done with this video. But yeah, if you're wondering what ERA plus is, it is basically a park adjusted stat where 100 is the league average. All right. So a 100 ERA plus is the league for the average, pitcher, and a 2.56 for Felipe Vasquez. That's crazy. All right, that is 156 points above the average. So that alone should show you how dominant this guy was in 2017. Also, in those 75 1/3 innings pitched, he only had 14 earned runs to go along with a 0.889 WHIP. I don't understand how somebody can have a sub-2 ERA and a sub-1 WHIP and not get any recognition for anything that he did in that 2017 campaign. Those numbers are they blow you out of the water. All right. But yeah, he also had a 247 FIP, and I mentioned this in the previous video, and FIP stands for Fielding Independent Pitching, which converts a starting or relief pitcher's three true outcomes, being the home run, a walk, or a strikeout, and turns it into an earned run an earned run average like number. All right. So basically, what FIP does is it gives you a number that only the pitcher can control. All right, so that includes, so he can only, allow so many strikeouts, so many walks, and so many home runs. So that completely takes out like fielding errors by a shortstop or pass balls by a catcher. All right, so the league average for that is also going to be a 350. So 247 is well under the mark, and that's just absolutely crazy for this caliber of player. He also had 88 strikeouts to go along with 20 walks, which totaled out to a 10.5 strikeouts per nine and a 2.4 walks per nine. And then he also only had a 5.6 hits per nine, which again, you can't make these kinds of numbers up. He did finish with a 4.40 walk to strikeout ratio. So that means for every 4.40 strikeouts he got, he had one walk. So, this guy's walks per nine would probably be pretty damn good. He did only finish with 21 saves, but in my opinion, saves are a bit of an overrated stat. It's not as, it's kind of based off of luck and what your team does. It's a team-based stat. But yeah, 21 saves. Overall, this guy's numbers were absolutely crazy. And once again, he had no notable accolades. He did not lead the league in anything. He did not receive any awards. He was just your everyday closer for your average ball club. If I'm SDS, I'm giving this guy a pretty decent 94 overall card. The hits per nine, it could definitely go higher, but the hits per nine and the Ks per nine would probably be through the roof. His control, his walks per nine at least would probably be a little bit. It would be fairly high for a relief pitcher. So I'd say maybe around the mids. I'd probably say around the low to mid 70s, which is actually pretty damn good for a reliever. Same with his control, probably low 70s, high 60s. I feel like that would be. I feel like with that, along with his velocity and his break, and just regarding everything else, all the other in-game stats, I feel like 94 overall would be a pretty good middle ground for this kind of a card. We're taking a trip back to October with this next card. This next card, he has become a postseason legend. However, this one is a little bit odd because we have had this card in previous installations of Diamond Dynasty. However, he did not come to the game, I believe, the past 2 years. But yeah, this is kind of like I wish this guy would come back, and also like a plead for him to come back, all right? And the guy I'm talking about is from the 2014 postseason, and that is none other than Giants starting pitcher Madison Bumgarner. All right, his 2014 postseason was, if you thought George Springer had a good postseason, and if you thought Felipe Vasquez's 2017 campaign were crazy, you have not seen Madison Bumgarner's 2014 postseason stats, all right? So in the entire 2014 postseason, he pitched 52 and 2/3 innings, all right, which is actually quite a bit. All right, so that's gonna average to about what? I'm just gonna round up to 53 real quick. We'll divide that by 9, so that's gonna average to almost 6 full games for Madison Bumgarner. All right. He had a win-loss record of 4 wins and 1 loss. His ERA was a 1.03, guys. 1.03. That's almost a sub-1 ERA for the postseason, which is probably the one time of the year where your stats have to be as low as possible for pitchers. He also had a 0.65 WHIP, which That's unheard of, all right? That stat alone just completely blew me out of the water. He also had 45 strikeouts to go along with only 6 walks that entire time. That would equate out to a 7.5 strikeout to walk ratio, which again is pretty freaking ridiculous. His opponent batting average, all right? The average that the opposing hitters got against him was a 150, guys. They hit well under the Mendoza line. That is Chris Davis. That is 2018 Chris Davis levels of opponent batting average, which is completely ridiculous, all right? And then he also had 2 complete games, 2 shutouts, got 1 save, and in the entire World Series allowed only 1 run. That's unheard of. Like what kind of a person does that? That's just blows me out of the water. Also, in this entire 2014 postseason, that was the year the Giants won their 2nd World Series in a span of 3 years, so he was a World Series champion that year. He was also the NLCS MVP, and he was also the World Series MVP. There was nothing holding this guy back in that 2014 postseason, all right? This guy absolutely dominated the entire field and the entire way he helped. He was probably the biggest part in them getting that 2014 World Series. And if I'm SDS, easily this guy's going to be a 99 overall. You know, you could definitely argue him being a relief pitcher, but I decided to go ahead and make him a starting pitcher. Just because I feel like Bumgarner deserves that starting pitcher card. But hits per 9 would be through the roof. Ks per 9 would definitely be through the roof. Walks per 9 would be through the roof. Like, this guy would probably look somewhat similar to what Immortal Clayton Kershaw looks like this year, but maybe just a little bit toned down. This guy would look absolutely ridiculous, and this is a card that everybody and their mamas is pleading to come back in MLB The Show 19. And the final guy that I want to talk about in this video is probably my favorite player right now in the MLB. had a great 2016 campaign. In my opinion, got snubbed for the MVP that year because Chris Bryant ended up winning it that year. So I mentioned Chris Bryant. He won the MVP in 2016. This other third baseman had, in my opinion, a much better season than Chris Bryant. But yeah, I'm going to be talking about Rockies third baseman Nolan Arenado, all right? So I'm going to be talking about his 2016 campaign, which in my opinion completely flew, just like Felipe Vasquez in 2017. He kind of flew under the radar in 2016 because the Rockies were not what they are now. Nolan being probably the top third baseman at the time. Everybody arguing, well, Chris Bryant won MVP, yeah, but this guy, he did so much for the Rockies, and in my opinion, you compare the two, and you'd probably take you'd probably take Nolan Arenado over Chris Bryant. That's what I meant to say. But yeah, taking a look at his 2016 stats, he led the National League with 160 games played. He had a slash line of a 294, a 362, and a 570, which would equate to a 932 OPS. So overall, his OPS was pretty good. His OPS plus, once again, I mentioned this in the Legend Wishlist video. OPS plus is a park adjusted stat, where, this is more so for players like Nolan Arenado who play in Coors Field, just to show how good these guys actually are. All right. Or like what their totals come out to when they play at places like Coors Field or Globe Life Park or Great American Ballpark. But yeah, he had an OPS plus of 129. Once again, the league average for that is a 100. So he was pretty, it's not mind blowing, but it's like high enough that, it's a very usable stat for this kind of a guy. He also led the National League with 41 home runs that season, and he also led the entire major leagues with 133 RBIs, which, is actually pretty good, especially for a guy like Nolan Arenado, who he has the glove, he has the bat. Next thing I have up on here is he had 35 doubles and 6 triples. Those doubles and the triples especially kind of blew my mind because normally Nolan isn't that type of guy who normally hits for triples, but his speed would probably be a little bit higher than normal. But yeah, he also had a 20 defensive runs saved, and if you guys don't know what defensive runs saved are, that is a defensive stat. I'm not quite sure how it is calculated. I'm pretty sure some of you guys can probably look it up, or at least link it in the description, or tell me in the comments down below how defensive runs saved is calculated. But it's basically a defensive stat that shows how good that player was defensively, and 20 means that they are a Gold Glove type kind of guy, or well above average, like one of the top defenders in the league, basically. All right, I believe he was 5th that season, behind the likes of Kevin Pillar and Mookie Betts. He was one of the greatest defenders in 2016 as well. And then he also led the National League with 352 total bases that season. That season, he did almost everything you could imagine. He was an all-star. He got a Gold Glove. He was a Silver Slugger, but he only finished 5th in MVP voting. That is correct. I don't know how this man only finished 15th in voting. We all know that Chris Bryant ended up winning it that year, but he also finished behind the likes of Daniel Murphy from Washington, who finished 2nd, Corey Seager from the Dodgers, and Anthony Rizzo from the Chicago Cubs, who finished 4th. That just kind of blows me out of the water that this guy didn't even get top 3. But that just goes to show that team success plays a pretty big factor, or a lot of the times. 2017 is a bit of an exception, but a lot of the times team success has a huge factor in MVP voting, as we saw in 2018 with Nolan Arenado finishing third in MVP voting. But if I'm SDS, I'm giving this guy, it's kind of a weird one because, Chris Bryant won the MVP that year, but Nolan clearly had the better stats, even though a lot of you are screaming Coors Field. But I'm giving this guy a 96 overall. One of the reasons I wanted this Nolan Arenado card is because one, I'm a bit of a biased Rockies fan. Two, we have never in MLB The Show, besides his rookie version, we have never seen like an over the top Nolan Arenado card. Like we haven't seen like a great Nolan Arenado card, and I think this would be perfect for him. A lot of you guys might say, why not pick his 2017 or his 2018 season where he finished third in MVPs? In my opinion, 2016 was his most dominant year. Just looking at the stats, he led the league in 4 different categories. He just had a lot more star power in 2016. I remember that season. I definitely remember that season. And in my opinion, he had a lot more star power in that 2016 season than he did in 2017 and 2018, where in my opinion, Trevor Story actually outshined Nolan Arenado. But that is going to wrap up this video, guys. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure you guys leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. Also, make sure you guys leave your card suggestions down in the comments below, because if you leave it down in the comments, odds are I will end up making a card for the next Flashback Wishlist. You can also leave some legend suggestions down here as well. Next Tuesday, the MLB The Show 15 trailer is coming out, so expect a video next Tuesday. Also expect a video Monday and Wednesday and Friday next week as well. But that's going to do it. Make sure you guys leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. I'll see you guys in the next one, and as always, have a great rest of your morning.